Be out for this. Where's Brandon when you need him? Shout out to Brandon. He called into us to the studio this morning trying to check in on us. We're getting ready for the show, Brandon. We'll talk to you later. You go worry about your games. We'll worry about this as Dallas and Brian Schottenheimer hope that they can get back to the top of the football world. Jerry Jones is chirping. He's talking. But what about the talk that Schottenheimer might give to his team in form of a speech? Maybe not so much.
Have you thought much about what you're going to say either the night before to the team in the hotel or right before the team goes out onto the field?
No, not really. You know, I think here's the way I view this, and it's funny, I actually caught myself doing this the other day, our bonus Monday. I kind of called the team up, and I kind of got a little fiery and excited about, playing the Eagles and, prime time and all that stuff. And I went to bed that night. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know better than that. Because honestly, the way we approach things, Todd, is every game we play is just another championship opportunity. It's just another championship opportunity. We get a chance to go out there against the Eagles. You don't get extra credit for beating the Eagles in Philly on prime time than you do for beating the Giants at noon in AT&T Stadium. So what I don't want these guys to do, and I think the coaches are a big part of this, is go in there and try so hard. Oh, we're playing the Eagles. I'm going to do so hard. They're going to make mistakes if they do that. Play free. It's football. Fly around. Love being around with your brothers, man. Just run to the football. Celebrate. Have fun. And so, again, it's going to be pretty consistent throughout the course of the deal. We're guaranteed 17 of these. This is the first one of that. I think our guys will play well.
Well, typically they play well in these type of situations. Historically, when they have a divisional game in September, when you go back to 2017, the folks have been able to make some good money if you thought that the Cowboys would cover. They've done it every single time except for 2024, and they still got the win against the Giants, won by 5 instead of covering that line of 5.5. So if you took the money line, maybe you still got some money that way. Either way, football is back tonight. The vibes are high. Can we get much higher? I say yes. Let's chop it up with Dews. My guy, Lise Juzable, locked in right now. You know that he's ready, so we are ready as well. Look back to Wade Phillips, who went 13-3 in 2007, Lige. That was the best first year for a Cowboys head coach since 2000 with all of their new first-year head coaches. What will Schottenheimer do in his first effort?
That'll be the question, right? He's bided his time. Wade had been an offensive coordinator for many years. Zach, obviously the family tree. Marty Schottenheimer, his dad, was a legend as a head coach. And I love everything he said in that press conference because he was thinking about what he was going to say to the team. And he was like, you don't need no rah-rah speeches. Like, they know this is a divisional matchup. And it's his first time being a head coach, right? So there's an acclimation period. He had to take a step back like players do and be like, let's just breathe. Like, go out there, do your job to the best of your ability, have fun with your brothers, run to the football. I'm excited about this Dallas team. Nobody is really talking about them for the first time. Now, obviously, the Micah Parsons news, people were talking about the Cowboys, but I'm talking about the hierarchy in the division, right? People are talking about the Eagles, the Commanders, and then people are talking about the Cowboys. I think this is going to be a sneaky good team that's going to muddle around 10-7, 9-8, and maybe find their way in the back end of the playoffs at a wild card spot and be dangerous. They're going to be explosive on offense. You have to remember, Zach, Dak Prescott does not do back-to-back losing seasons. And if you go back to the 2023 season, was number 2 in the MVP race behind the winner, Lamar Jackson. I'm excited to see this new Dallas team led by Brian Schottenheimer.
So, Lige, let's get into some of the things you think will be the deciding factors for tonight's game. And let's start with that Cowboys run defense. Is it as simple as you slow down Saquon, you have a good shot at winning?
You have a better shot, Zach, for sure. I mean, anytime a guy runs for 2,000 yards and is Offensive Player of the Year, he's going to be the focal point of the offense. But that was the Achilles heel for this Dallas Cowboys team, and that's what Jerry Jones was preaching when trading away Micah Parsons. You bring in Kenny Clark, who actually struggled last year because there was a scheme change, right? They went from a 3-4 in Green Bay to a 4-3. Well, guess what they play in Dallas? A 4-3. So is Kenny Clark going to be the same guy we saw in 22 and 23? Or is he going to be the guy that we saw in 24 that really struggled? And you see the rush yards per game right there on your screen. They were ranked 29th, giving up almost a $140, Zach. Me and you could have ran against that Dallas run defense last year. That's how bad they were. So that is something I'm going to watch today because we know the Eagles are going to come out and be physical at the attack point and try to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. Can those guys in the middle Osa Odighizuwa, Kenny Clark, can they stand up to that massive offensive line from the Eagles and mitigate this run game?
Yeah, LJ scheme up a nice little play. I don't think either one wants to see you or I coming down that middle with a hole wide in front of us. You know, look out. We're going to lower the boom a little bit. See? You see what LJ's all about. What about that offense for the Eagles? You now have Kevin Patullo sliding into the offensive coordinator role, a new face yet again. He'll be looking at the play calling. We'll be looking forward to seeing what he does. How do you think that'll play out?
Yeah, so that's the thing that I can't wait to see tonight, because remember when the Eagles went to the championship in the 2022 season, they lost both coordinators. Well, they didn't lose both coordinators, but they did lose their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, to the Saints. Now Kevin Patullo comes in, and he's well-liked in the NFL world, but he has never actually called plays, Zach. And it's a rhythm to calling plays, right? We even saw Kellen Moore. He had to find his footing last year. People tend to forget that the Eagles went 2-2 to start the season, and right before the bye, after the bye, he kind of changed his philosophy and said, I have this great running back, I have this massive O-line. Let me run the ball instead of trying to force the ball down the field. So to me, there's an acclimation period when you're a play caller. It's a rhythm to it. You see Saquon Barkley, most rush yards in the season. He's on the, at the bottom of the top of that list, but it'll be interesting. I know Kevin Patullo isn't going to try to reinvent the wheel. He's going to run the ball, but still, there's a ebbs and flow to play calling and the adjustment period. That's what you can't do unless you do it, right? There's no teaching that. You have to go through it, Zach. So that's what I'll be watching to see Kevin Patullo, because this is the first time he's actually calling plays. And when the Dallas Cowboys make an adjustment, how will he make an adjustment so they can have success on offense?
And when you look at Jalen Hurts, go back to college for him, give or take a few, this will be his 10th different play caller. So yet another voice inside of his ear trying to get those plays in. Another deciding factor tonight, you will be looking at the Philadelphia Eagles secondary.
Yeah, because there's some new additions, right? C.J. Gardner-Johnson's no longer there. Big Play Slate is no longer there. So Sidney Brown comes in as a guy they drafted a few years ago. He's going to be starting where C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And then Adoree Jackson, they bring him in as the veteran corner. He's going to be starting opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, right? So you lose two prominent veterans in that back, and that really kind of held things together. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was a ball hawk. Will Sidney Brown be that ball hawk? You see some clips of there. He's a physical player. He can dislodge the football. Adoree Jackson has played at a high level. He was a former first-round pick, played for the Giants and Titans as well. So I'll be looking to see more specifically in that secondary, because let's not forget, Dallas added a playmaker next to CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and he's one of the better 50-50 jump ball catchers in the NFL. So you see the numbers right there. They struggled in 2023 against the pass. Were significantly better last year, especially with Vic Fangio taking over as the defense. But again, anytime you have moving parts, it's something to beware and watch. So I can't wait to see those new additions into this defense to see how they work out.
LJ, you might have thought we were going to be done with this segment right now. We are not. I have a little surprise for you here. Let's have some fun, because I know you like to get in the kitchen and chop it up. We all know I like to eat. I even have this little shirt right here that says Lil Glizzy's Hot Dog Hut. That gives you a glimpse of what we're talking about. We are talking about hot dogs.
Oh my
Dr.
God.
Glizzy to the rescue. To be specific, we're talking about the price of hot dogs at NFL stadiums all across the board. I want to first ask you, how much is too much to pay for a hot dog at a game?
Well, I just saw Baltimore Ravens rolled out like a $5 menu. I think anything over $5 is absurd for a glizzy. Like, that's just ridiculous, even though it's at a sporting event. But yeah, I saw it earlier on X. I think this is amazing by the Baltimore Ravens, because fans are already spending so much money to come to the game to root their team on. Don't tax them at the concession stands. Make sure it's a home environment so they come and they feel comfortable and they want to spend money to support their team. So I love what the Baltimore Ravens did with that.
$3 and some change for that hot dog at the Ravens Stadium. How much do you think is the cheapest hot dog, and who do you think serves up the cheapest hot dog in the NFL?
I'm going to say Chicago's kind of synonymous with hot dogs, so I'm going to say them at $2 maybe.
Okay, you have the $2 with the correct price, but it is not the Bears. It's the Falcons for $2.
Oh, the Falcons.
You know,
wow.
Because Arthur Smith and the whole situation over there with Arthur Blank, he loves to give the fan
All right, so they're going to stay in the locker room when the banner is unveiled. He believes the Eagles will still have success this season, and so do these guys. Ryan Wilson, Mike Renner, Emory Hunt, all believe the Eagles will return to the Super Bowl. Ryan, I'll start with you. Why are you so confident in a team to repeat as an NFC champion when we haven't even seen a division repeat winner in the NFC East in over 20 years?
Yeah, I'm just not going to overthink it, guys. I think when you talk about the way that Jalen Hurts has played, Nick Sirianni is now an asset. Remember the conversations we had not too long ago about whether he was going to keep his job? It sounds funny. In hindsight, Howie Roseman is one of the best GMs, if not the best GM in the NFL in terms of putting together this roster. And while in years past, when they lost both their coordinators, Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, and that team took a step back, although they still made the playoffs, I'm less concerned this time around. Kevin Patullo feels like he's going to pick up where we saw Kellen Moore leave off. Vic Fangio is still there, and that defense should be as good, if not better, than last year, even though there are some issues with depth along the defensive line, and even you could argue in the secondary. But I think if they can do what they do offensively, lean on that running game, let Jalen Hurts do the things that he does successfully, and perhaps find out who that wide receiver 3 is going to be, because that could also be a potential question. It's hard not to love what this team put on tape last year, and there's really no reason for me to doubt them heading into this year because many of the same faces are returning.
And they are once again the favorites in the NFC, despite the fact, Mike, that they lost Milton Williams on defense, Josh Sweat on that defensive line, Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Brandon Graham. Why don't you think that's going to matter?
Because they just reload. I mean, they aren't one guy either. This is a team that can lose one of their stars. And there's a lot of stars, and it really never seems to affect them because they're so deep at so many positions. You know, they lost all those defensive linemen, but Moro Ojomo looks primed for a breakout season here coming into year 3. They added Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche, 2 guys that can get after the passer at a high level, and Jalen Hunt, you saw the 3rd rounder last year, really excel down the stretch. And then you have 2 of your stars, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter there on the defensive line. They're only getting better. They're only going into year 3, so they could be taking leaps forward as well. So, yeah, you know, those losses, I'm not going to say those aren't good players that they lost, but there's the reason why this Eagles team was so dominant down the stretch is because they're really only getting better at a lot of different positions.
Best defense and best offense. Emory, as a former running back yourself, do you expect that run game to be as dominant as it was last season? Saquon went over 200 yards in the regular season. The team went over 3,500 yards when you include the playoffs. Nobody's ever run for that many yards in a full season.
I truly believe so, because when you look at what's behind Saquon Barkley, they've elevated Will Shipley, who's going to get some carries, look fantastic in the preseason, and so they'll be able to run the football. That's why they are who they are. Their foundation is the ground game, and everything else is built around that. Even on defense, it's point of attack play, then everything else is built around that. The Eagles do a great job of preparing their roster like a college football team. They always have a plan in place for a year ahead. So when you draft guys, it's like, wow, that was a good pick, and then he doesn't play as a rookie. Well, next year when they let those stars leave and find money elsewhere, the guy they drafted a year ago steps up and ready to go. So this team can lose their stars. If you take away all their starters and just played this game with their backups and went into the season with their backups, this is a 7-win team. So that's how deep they are. And also in the backfield, you lose Gainwell, but guess who's ready to go? Will Shipley is ready to go to be that guy that's in that rotation with Saquon Barkley.
So you all have the Eagles winning the NFC. 2 of you have them playing the Eagles. Emory, you're one of them. Mike, you're the other. We saw that game last season. The Eagles went into Baltimore and won in early December. Mike, how do you see the potential rematch in the Super Bowl going this year?
I like the Ravens this year. They're kind of like the Eagles of the AFC in that this roster, top to bottom, just don't have a lot of holes. You know, maybe the guard position. I think that's the same thing you say for the Eagles. Maybe the guard position is where you're the weakest. But if that's your weak link on an entire roster, you probably have a pretty darn good roster. And I think the separator here to me is just the quarterback position. It's the fact that Lamar Jackson can take it to another level as a passer that Jalen Hurts, you know, we've seen sometimes the playoffs, we've seen sometimes the Super Bowl, but Lamar Jackson still, there's a reason why he's a 2-time MVP. So these rosters, top to bottom, are elite, but I think the Ravens just have a couple more game changers at the positions I want to see game changers at, and that's why I have Baltimore win it all.